Welcome to A Moment of Zen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Zen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, cannabis, and entertainment from the millennial mom's perspective. Here's your host, Zen Sams.
Hello, my beautiful friends and loyal listeners. It's always such a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you so much for listening and interacting with me on social media. That truly does make it all worthwhile. Please make sure to follow me at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X, not a Z. And remember that we're now live on Traverse TV Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern, YouTube Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern. And of course, all episodes of A Moment of Zen are now streaming 24/7. That's right. 24/7 on Kathy Ireland's Your Home TV. We have such a great show lined up for you today. Very exciting stuff. Coming on in just a few, we have a real treat in our influencer segment brought to you by Travel by Navi. We're heading all the way to Vancouver, British Columbia to feature the amazing Desi G, a 14-year-old Greek-Canadian singer-songwriter with a passion for music and connecting with people. She's going to be joining us with her manager, Stephen Reza, who's a multi-platinum singer and producer. Today, we're chatting music, what her career at 14 years old looks like, and her plans for 2023. In our Business and Buzz segment brought to you by Revere Securities, we're featuring the awesome Grace Gong, founder of Smart Venture Media and the host of Smart Venture Podcasts. It's a top 10 VC podcast. Today, we're chatting about BlackRock's latest moves, how to stay afloat amidst a looming recession, and strategic investment tips. In our Innovation and Tech segment brought to you by Caldwell Soames, we're joined by our regular contributor, Paul Caldwell, chairman and CEO of Caldwell Soames. And today he's joined by Madison Malloy, producer, speaker, and host, and author of To Lighten The F Up, a self-help guide of sorts with a side of humor. Today, we're chatting about when is the right time to close the bank of mom and dad, and what is the best way to support your adult kids amid fears of this crazy looming recession. In the political segment brought to you by ogpay.com, we're featuring my dear friend, radio host, Rich Valdés. That's right, America's liberty-loving Latino amigo. Rich took over the late-night radio time slot previously held by Larry King and Jim Bohannon. Introducing Rich Valdés, America at Night brings late-night radio totally alive. Each weeknight from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern, he's there to give us insight on Hispanic conservatives, chat politics, and of course, pop culture. Stay tuned for the influencer segment brought to you by Navi for the amazing Greek-Canadian 14-year-old singer-songwriter Desi G with over 2 million followers. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Animoca Brands. As a worldwide industry leader in digital entertainment, blockchain, and digital property rights, Animoca Brands plays a key role in the future growth of the open metaverse. During unstable times like these in burgeoning industries similar to blockchain, it's important to realize that blockchain can and will survive and eventually flourish, and industry-leading companies like Animoca Brands will guide the transformation into the future. Animoca Brands will keep building a better and fairer Web3 ecosystem, create impact for better, and bring true digital property rights to all internet users through NFTs and the open metaverse. For more information and to become part of the excitement, go to animocabrands.com. That's animocabrands.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Coming on in just a few minutes, we have a real treat in our influencer segment brought to you by Navi Travel. We're heading all the way to Vancouver, British Columbia to feature the amazing Desi G, a 14-year-old Greek-Canadian singer-songwriter with a passion for music and connecting with people. She began her music at the tender age of 6 years old, performing on stage. She released her first self-written album, Lucid Thoughts, back in 2021, and she's going to be releasing her second album in the spring of this year titled Reflections. Desi's going to be joining us with her manager, Stephen Reza, who is a multi-platinum singer and producer himself. Today, they're here to chat music, what her career at 14 years old looks like and plans for 2023. Welcoming now to the show is the beautiful Desi G, along with her manager, Stephen Reza. Welcome to the show, my friends.
Hello. It's good to be here. It's good to be back.
How you doing? It's nice to see you.
Thank you so much for coming back on. Desi, congrats on all of your success, and welcome back. This is your second appearance here on our platform.
Yes.
Stephen, nice to meet you.
I know, so nice to meet you too.
I know that Desi's very excited that you are part of her camp, because the first thing she said is, I'm excited to come back on your platform, Zen, but I definitely have to bring somebody that I want you to meet. So I'm very excited to chat.
Right. That's awesome.
So Desi, tell us about your upcoming album, Reflections. This is so exciting.
Yes. All right. Well, Reflections is something that I worked on all throughout May last year. It was something that we worked on during the summertime, and we just starting to get tracks in. It's sounding so good. I've already released 2 out of a few singles that I'm going to be releasing for Reflections. And with that, by the end of the month, my new single from Reflections is being released. It is called Afraid to Fall in Love, which you can go pre-save. The pre-save link is in all my socials. So if you want to go pre-save it and be one of the first to listen to it, go check it out. But yeah, Reflections.
So what was the inspiration behind it, and can we expect any major collaborations on the album?
So there are no major collaborations on this album, but Reflections is something that is sort of like a remake of Lucid Thoughts. It sort of ties into the storyline. So Lucid Thoughts is what I was feeling at that moment, and then Reflections is reflecting back on that previous album.
Awesome. I love the way that you're transitioning that. And you know what? There is a major collaboration. It's Stephen. Stephen is the major collaboration. Welcome to the show, my friend. Okay, tell me, what makes Desi unique, and what does managing her entail?
Oh gosh, there's so much that makes her unique. I would say the first thing is her commitment to her craft. She really is she is down to just work consistently into the business. She wants it. And there's so many artists who are talented, who are making music, but there aren't so many artists who have both of those things, who are consistently working hard at the craft consistently.
Thank you.
So she's constantly making these content marketing assets. She's constantly making music, and it's just something that I admired about her and her team. And I was just like, you know what, put me on board. Let's go. So I'm really excited to be on this team. And her Reflections album, we're gonna get the rest of the records mixed by a friend of mine, Seth Munson, who's also someone who's worked on some really big projects out in Colorado. So I'm gonna fly out there in February, help finish the rest of the records, and I'm so excited to see where it goes.
Oh, I'm so excited that you have teamed up here, because I'm very motherly over her. Being a mom and a fellow Greek Canadian, I was born in Montreal, Canada. I check in on her and I speak to her in Greek, and I only kind of speak. The well wishes come from the Greek mom's perspective, so it has to be in Greek. And I'm always talking and asking her what she's doing, how her school is. But this is such an exciting time for her. Desi, talk to me about your style of music, and who are your inspirations?
Yes. Well, my style of music, as an artist, I'm always growing. I'm always open to trying new genres and trying new things with my voice and the production. As of right now, I'm definitely a pop artist. I focus on making pop, but definitely some of my newer songs are going to have a new flavor that I've never tried before. I won't share too much, but they're awesome.
I can't wait. So one more thing. This is very interesting, and I might sound a little bit, I don't know about this trend or who these people are, but you joined Goat Fam LA, right? It's a squad.
Yes,
you're a squad member of Goat Fam LA. Like I'm supposed to know what this is, but all right. So it's a teen squad featuring, I know, Gavin Magnus, and I know he's a teen singer and a YouTuber, because I have a 7-year-old daughter who actually follows this person. So
oh my God.
it's crazy. So talk to me about Goat Fam. What does joining mean, and how does this affect your career? And then Stephen, I'd like to hear your perspective too on Goat Fam.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. So Goat Fam was definitely something that I never expected myself to join. You know, I've always been a Goat Fam fan. I've always, you know, been supportive of Gavin and everything he's doing. He's doing so amazing. But yeah, we connected through Instagram, social media, and there were auditions being held, and they're like, "Hey, Des, you want to audition for Goat Fam? I think you'd be perfect fit." I was like, "Yeah, of course." So I auditioned, and everyone got in, and now I'm in Goat Fam. It's been such
Wow.
a moving
I
opportunity.
feel like you just told me you got on America's Got Talent or The Voice. Like, is it just like a big, like, Steven, fill me in here. Like, I'm a millennial mom. I don't know Goat Fam.
So I mean, it's pretty amazing because like Gavin and the team over there. I mean, like if it in terms of like my experience with artist development, and I would say the Goat Fam is definitely next in line for being trailblazers for the next it thing on like YouTube and on other social platforms. So I think it's great that Desi gets to team up with such a cool squad of kids. You know, like I think it's really great. They're all super talented. And they're all, you know, they just are the next it thing, you know, they're next in line for that. So I think it's awesome to see Desi, you know, team up with them because she's the next it thing as well. And
I love it. She is.
Yeah.
And so this is a big deal. So this is okay. So this is officially a big deal. Congratulations. Like, this is a major step. Okay. So Stephen, in your opinion, how important is social media for artists in today's music era, and how has it changed the industry from your perspective?
Crucial. It's absolutely crucial. Like you know, we saw two flips in the Music Academy, right? We saw you know, we saw the sales flip, and then we saw the streaming flip. Like, people were stealing music in the early 2010s, right? With Napster, and then after that, the apps stepped in and said, "Okay, here, this is streaming time." Now, us as artists, we can essentially be like YouTubers in the sense where we're getting streams. So now this has made independent artists a possibility. Like, before that, you know, you think about the 70s, you think about the 80s. We had like the Beatles, and we had you know, Kiss, where like the fans really wanted to track these people down and find out where they were going to be. So the artists did not need to be so close to the fan. They were almost kind of running from the fans, right? Where now, us as artists, we should be close to the fans. We should be communicating with the fans. We should be loving the fans the way that Desi does. Like, she's always so close with her fan base. She's always communicating with her fan base. And, you know, that is vital for a artist nowadays. You have to be communicating.
It's extremely important to have an engagement with your fan base, and a high engagement for that aspect, and to say thank you, and to reply to your comments, and to not let them go to spam, because then people think you don't care, or you're just, you know, a profile being controlled by somebody else. But when they know that you're there and you're behind them, and you feedback, they feel like they're speaking to a real person, and that's exactly the case. It's connectivity. All right, we have about a minute and a half. Very quickly, tell me about how you got to 2 million followers, and then I'd love it if you could sing for us.
Yes, of course. Wow, how did I get to 2 mil? I think having that strong foundation from the start really played an extreme role, and also building connections and communicating with my fan base, and making those connections through social media is what truly brought me to where I am today. It's all about the connections, who you meet, and the way you treat your fan base. It's so crucial, especially now, day and age, on social media. So
yeah, coming back to the importance of social media. So you're 14 years old and you're in school. What does your training look like, very quickly?
My training for my voice?
Yep.
Yes. For my voice, I do singing lessons every week. I try to always warm up my voice in the morning, and always try to keep my voice healthy and fresh, because you never know what this industry is going to throw at you, whether performance, an interview, recording in the studio. So always keeping my voice healthy and fresh is the biggest thing for me.
Beautiful. I love it. What are you going to sing for us?
Today, I'm going to be singing my newest release called Self-Sabotage. It was released about 2 months ago. Yeah, it's one of the singles off of Reflections.
Okay, take it away.
I'm hard on me, perfectionistic tendencies, self-critical, intrusive thoughts are drowning me, telling myself I'm better off alone. Being closed off is all I've ever known, holding myself back from what I can achieve, secretly scared everyone is judging me. Why can't I let myself be happy? Self-sabotage is so demanding. Tell myself too much, so tired of getting stuck, pulling deeper and deeper into the ether, and now I can't get myself out. I think I've had enough, feeling so fed up. The more that I try, the more I realize that I can't hide from my self-sabotage.
Woo, that was amazing.
Yo, that was dope.
Fantastic. Desi, you are one talented individual. Let me tell you, you are going places,
Thank you.
kiddo. So we are out of time, but listen, that was so incredible. Thank you so much for gracing us with your lovely presence today, my darling. And
Thank
Stephen,
you.
thank you for being such a great support system for her. I know
Of
that
course.
you are quite the expert in what you do, and she's in good hands. If not,
Yeah.
you know the Greek moms are coming after you if she's not.
Of course.
All right, guys, you definitely have to check out the amazing Desi G. That was our influencer segment brought to you by Navi Travel. Do check her out at desig.music, or you can head directly to her website, desigmusic.com, and definitely check out Stephen Reza on the gram at Stephen Reza. That's with 2 Z's. Head to fc-ao.org for the official one-stop shop for individual and major label artists. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Revere Securities. Revere is committed to building a relationship of trust in which they work closely with you to help you define your objectives, explore alternatives, and choose the financial and investment strategies that are most appropriate for you. Go to reveresecurities.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next in our Business and Buzz segment, brought to you by Revere Securities, we're featuring Grace Gong, founder of Smart Venture Media and the host of Smart Venture Podcasts, a top 10 VC podcast. Grace is featured on the list of LinkedIn Top Voices in Finance for 2022. She's also a best-selling author of The Last Key to Success and How to Be a Venture Capitalist, released on Amazon. Today, we're chatting about BlackRock's latest moves, pro-investment tips, and how to stay afloat a looming recession. According to the Financial Times, BlackRock's chair and CEO Larry Fink has warned that negative markets had a substantial impact on the world's largest fund manager last year, with assets down 1.4 trillion on the year and Q4 revenues down 15%. Now, that's according to Emma Dunkley's Financial Times report. While the job cut numbers are not huge, the move reflects a growing feeling that 2023 could represent a painful period of reckoning for many. Here to chat finances, investment strategies, and staying ahead of the curve is the awesome Grace Gong. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Zen, for the kind intro.
All right, Grace, let's dive right in. BlackRock, the biggest fund manager, at least one of the big giants, has been one of the biggest winners from the stimulus-fueled bull market of the past decade or so. But we now are seeing that not even a giant like BlackRock is immune to 2021's profound change in market conditions. What do you say to this? And do you feel that there's a recession looming?
I definitely feel like we're not in the best shape of the economy. So although, we're not really like, not everyone's investing really bullishly. However, like I feel like when people people are really focusing on investing in the actual technology innovation. Is that last year we've seen a lot of PFPs or like NFTs that are raised millions of dollars, but this year we'll probably see more of the infrastructures as well as like the more actual technical innovation that are happening are getting actually the funding that they needed.
Yeah, so you're really big on the tech stuff here. I could totally relate. I mean, I think that that's an interesting industry and sector. Right now, all eyes are on the US Federal Reserve and whether a pause or even a pivot in its series of aggressive interest rate hikes is coming. And while many investors are yearning for a return to the years of what we call the Fed put and rising markets, should this not prove to be the case, then asset managers are likely to feel more pain this year. Typically, I know that a lot of the industry managers that we deal with on our show are regular contributors, such as the Kyle Wolves of the world. They tend not to panic in times like this. They're cool as cucumbers.
Mhm.
They know the game very well. But from your perspective, from an entrepreneur, from a venture capitalist perspective, you've written books. Please share with us some strategies that can help us navigate these perhaps rough times with a smooth sail. Other than the tech industry, what kind of investment, I mean, which investment industries, for one, should people be focusing on, and what kind of time frame should we give the market to really respond to some of these strategic investments, like perhaps in the tech industry and placements that you're talking about?
Yeah, totally. I think that's a really great question. Speaking of investing in any industry, I personally think there's never been a better industry to invest in than yourself. I think, like in the past, when there's an economic downturn, a lot of people start thinking of, consumer goods is a sector that will never really go down because we'll always need toilet paper or anything that we'll use in our home. And then there is the healthcare industry, which means, people will still get sick during this economic downturn, and people are not going to not stop spending money on that. And then there is the traditional education sector. A lot of people started going to business school because of maybe they're getting laid off, or like they want to actually just, instead of going to work in the minimum wage job, they will just invest in themselves in education. However, nowadays, like education could come from every different format. So for example, listening to this podcast is a really great way to learning everything for free, right? So I think personally, I think the best investment what you should make right now is probably to invest in yourself. That being said, there's about maybe two different ways that you could invest in yourself, right? One way is to essentially, like, in the past, when we think about, the five people around you, people always say, like, the five people around you are you are the average person of the five people around you. And that's in the past. The five people would be your classmate or like your neighbor or someone who's actually physically around you. Nowadays, it's like the five people on the internet. It could be, let's say you really admire someone and then you listen to their talk every day, or you join an internet Discord group or like any sort of community that you could absorb information from. So I think that's, both of them are really good investment of your time to, find that group that are things that you want to learn about and then actually join them. And it's essentially free, that you don't have to pay any money beside your time. And the second way of investing in yourself is investing in your personal branding. And that, so like there's a survey that Gen Z is creator economy is one of the sector that Gen Z investors are most passionate about, because of nowadays people growing up, they don't really want to be doctor or lawyer, they want to be a YouTuber, or they want to actually have their own following. We've also see a lot of content creators, such as there were in VC industry, there were a lot of people successfully started $1 million funds by starting a podcast or like starting their own media presentation online. And there were
Yeah.
also, yeah.
Let's talk about the $1 million funds, because at this point right now, as a result of these what we call headwinds, managers and consultants said that there will likely be more mergers and acquisitions this year, what we call M&A. And although higher interest rates and costs of capital mean it's unlikely that mega deals are going to be struck, rather top line revenue and margin erosion, as well as organic growth challenges, those are going to encourage smaller asset managers to really reevaluate their strategic plans and consider becoming a buyer or for a seller. So the case for M&A, mergers and acquisitions, for these mid-sized players, what we call in or around 500 billion assets under management, AUMs, is very strong. So what do you say to this? And is this a good area for investment, mergers and acquisitions?
I definitely can see why people think is going to be trending next year. So, because of in general, like when interest rate goes up, people are less likely to take a loan, but they are still needing the financing since they have a really low valuation. The venture capitalists are probably not going to spend that much, money. Everybody's waiting for what is the lowest point for me to buy, but however, the companies are. Looking for to see when is the highest point so I can sell or I can raise the next round. So it's kind of like a conflicted point there. I can see things in both ways. So last year there were a drop in 2022. It was the global IPO dropped by 31%, and then M&A deal were dropping 8%. So essentially last year people are not making a lot of moves as the year before. However, we also see some really big deals that were happening. So, for example, Adobe acquired Figma for $20 billion. And this year, when the year just started, we've seen news that's, Microsoft were trying to acquire 49% of ChatGPT and, for $10 billion. And so we can see these these kind of conflicted image. So there is some people were, still very bullish on the market. I've seen, those big tech companies and the people actually with buying power are still actively looking for really good internet properties to keep on their investment. However, there's also other companies that are just not making moves because people are waiting for the lowest point to buy.
It's a tough period. It's a kind of wait and see period, right? So another interesting area, and we'll talk about some disruptive industries. We only have about 2 minutes left, but also the growing adoption of actively managed ETFs should come as no surprise because major active mutual fund providers have entered the ETF fray by converting or cloning existing mutual fund strategies or adding these new strategies. And the improved tax efficiency, that's a whole different thing, of ETFs, was a quick win for investors in these strategies. So we're going to see much more choice in the active ETF realm and ways in which investors can control and manage their overall portfolios. So we're going to probably see this kind of new area of investment vehicle come to the rise. But talk to me. We have 2 minutes left. What emerging disruptive industries do you think have the potential to outperform the current market conditions? What financial vehicles and industries should be a better hedge against inflation than most, in your opinion?
Yeah, totally. I think that's another great question. So in terms of emerging market, I personally really bullish on the artificial intelligence market. Because of this year, there's so many big news that are happening. I think there's the giant jump between this year in terms of the technology difference from previous years is this year, all the artificial intelligence companies are trained by machine and then they're more sophisticated and complex that are actually mimicking humans way of thinking instead of in the past, when people are thinking about artificial intelligence, people think anything bot related are not necessarily the positive feeling that people associate it with. So for example, when you chat with something, when you're going on a phone call and then when you hear it's a robot on the other end, you probably won't really have you probably are looking for, to get the human solution instead of just keep waiting in line. However, this year, the robot solution becoming a lot more humanized. So that's one of the biggest shifts. So I'm personally, in terms of the technology wise, and I definitely feel like that's a really good sector to pay attention to. And as well as technology during the economic downturn and when we're, I think it's a really great way to help people with efficiency. People like to, spend less to do more. So
Yes.
technology, yeah.
So artificial intelligence and technology, there you have it. We are out of time, Grace, but I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on. Very interesting perspective, very insightful, full of information. You're awesome.
Thank you. You too.
Absolutely. So, guys, listen, what we extracted from this amazing interview is that it's not all doom and gloom this year. Those running ETFs, private market funds, and sustainable investments are expected to attract the biggest inflows in 2023, according to market analysis reports. I think that the world's transition to renewable energy from fossil fuels is also the beginning of a new sort of industrial revolution. Investors are supporting that in spirit and increasingly with their portfolios. Global impact investment funds surpassed a total of $1 trillion in assets for the first time in 2022. And the momentum, well, it's just going to continue on to this year. That was our Business and Buzz segment brought to you by Revere Securities. That was the awesome Grace Gong, founder and CEO of Smart Venture Media. You could head directly to her website at gracegong.com, or you could check her out on Instagram or Twitter at Grace Gong CEO. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OG Pay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OG Pay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up in just a few minutes in our Innovation and Tech segment brought to you by Caldwell Soames, we're joined by our regular contributor, Paul Caldwell, chairman and CEO of Caldwell Soames. And today he's joined by Madison Malloy, author, producer, speaker, and host. From minimizing financial risks on Wall Street to crafting risque jokes for crowds in New York City's most prominent comedy clubs, Madison's journey through adulthood has been one for the books. Well, one book specifically. Time to Lighten the F Up, a self-help guide with a side of humor. Her debut self-help guide of sorts. Today we're chatting about when is the right time to close the bank of mom and dad, and what is the best way to support your adult kids amid fears of looming recession. Now, a recent article published on Yahoo Finance highlighted this topic very well, going on to say that parents to adult kids across the U.S. are considering coming out of retirement or refinancing their homes in order to prop up their kids' bank accounts. And that cash request is only going to keep coming. So the question remains, when is the right time to close the bank of mom and dad in order to protect your own financial security? Here to chat finances, family, and avoiding a feud are my experts at hand, the amazing Madison Malloy and Paul Caldwell, chairman and CEO of Caldwell Soames. Welcome to the show, my friends.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks, Zen.
Madison, we shall start with you, ladies first. Okay, so during the pandemic, younger generations increasingly, we all know this, had to rely on their parents for support after being thrown into the world of work, often with really no prior experience or savings to fall back on. So college-aged kids are now increasingly panicking about their financial stability, with a recent study finding they're as worried about inflation and recession as they are about mass shootings. So that's a ton of worry and pressure, and I am certainly empathetic towards this as a mom. But in your opinion, as an author and savvy entrepreneur, when do we say enough is enough?
Well, it's supposed to be after college. I mean, if you're a child that's lucky enough to have your parents pay for college, then that's great. But that really should be kind of the final thing. Obviously, the cost of living is rising faster than wages. So if somebody's out of college, instead of tapping into their parents' bank account because they need to be aware of their parents' financial future, that they've already sacrificed so much for them to begin with, consider living at home. And then maybe you can just contribute to some groceries, or maybe your parents will say, you know what, just save up. And that way, if something happens, we don't have to worry about it. But it is a sticky situation, depending on, what they majored in and what kind of jobs and what the job market is and with everything going on. But I think parents can limit their financial risk by maybe allowing them to move in for a year.
Yeah, you know what? You are spot on. So I thank you for saying that because it's rather hard. Many parents do have an adult child living at home with them currently, and they are not alone. There's an epidemic of young
Mhm.
adults in our society who are just struggling. I mean, struggling to get off the ground. And in many families, this works out fine. The adult child is responsible and contributes to the household, like you said, while they set themselves up to live independently. But if your adult child has moved home or never left and expects you to take care of their needs, you've probably started to feel resentful and frustrated. So I do agree.
Yeah.
Paul, welcome back.
Hi there.
You are quite the successful businessman and a parent to children. And in your opinion, the studies are now finding that children are largely spending their parents' cash on necessities like food and rent. However, 46% of parents have also seen their money used for holidays, and 66% report covering their children's cell phone bills. Last spring, savings.com found that 1 in 2 parents of children aged 18 and over were helping their kids meet ends meet. In fact, parents spend 23% more on their children's expenses than they do contributing to their own retirement or savings. You are a parent. What do you say to this? And what advice do you have to parents to stay ahead of this disastrous curve that many youngsters often end up taking that will ultimately weigh the parents down?
Our kids spend our money on necessities like video games without us knowing. And DoorDash, pizza and DoorDash. No idea. Anyway, I think that a lot of this really starts with financial literacy education. I think it matters how kids are brought up and what they're exposed to. I think the environment is very important. I don't think it's necessarily an economics conversation either. I don't think it's necessarily one person has more money or one family has more money than another family. I think no matter how much money someone has, we all want to get as much value for the money that we do have as possible. And I think that no matter if you're in an economically blessed situation or if you're in a financially distressed situation, when you have kids, you can still talk to them and get them into an environment where they begin to understand a little bit about money and its value, that money has value and that resources are there because someone paid for them. And also the idea that one can delay gratification. I think that's another thing in this society today. I see delayed gratification just isn't a thing people talk about. They want it now, and they want it like now means yesterday. And also they also feel a bit entitled to have it. And these are interesting conversations, I think. But from my perspective, the best thing someone could do is get their young children into financial literacy programs, help them to appreciate the value of money and the value of resources and appreciate the amount of work that has to go into attain these things. That seems like it deals with the problem at the beginning. If someone's already in the situation and your 35-year-old son just moved back home and is now creating an impact, on your financial circumstances, that's just a sit down at the breakfast table and a conversation about, hey, look, you have to contribute, or you've got to find somewhere else or some other place to go. You can live here. It's not impacting us all that much, but look, you can't not contribute somehow. Find ways to contribute.
Yeah. And if you think about it, listen, there's nothing logical. I said this earlier about having children. Yes, they can bring great joy, but they can also bring great pain and frustration. I mean, children are messy. They cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to raise and often require parents to make extreme sacrifices. So if the decision to have children isn't logical, well, then guess what? It must be emotional. And as a mom, since I have children, you tend to parent out of emotion. And that's where, to Madison's point, you have to draw the line between logic and emotion, and to what you just said too, Paul. We have about 5 minutes left here. So Madison, quickly, let's chat. When should parents be reducing or cutting off financial support? And more importantly, how should parents balance their financial needs with that of their children? It sounds simple. I say set them up, to Paul's point, for overall success, but specifically financial success as early as possible. Give us a few pointers on this.
Yeah, so I like what Paul was saying, and I think it's, our school system, education system doesn't teach money, right? They teach you kind of how to be an employee. So it's up to the parents to educate the children as early as possible. And what Paul said was great, creating value, but also creating excitement. Doing games where you can see the compound interest if you put this away, and really showing them what those charts look like. Even if they're babysitting at age 13, hey, if you're putting away 70% of your babysitting money, this is what you could have at this time. So it kind of creates like an excitement level. But obviously, when kids get out of college, they're not going to have the highest paid job. So, maybe they can provide a little bit of assistance to make it a little easier, but I don't think it should be past the age of 25.
There you go. You said it. 25 should be the drawing point. Now, yeah, there definitely comes a time when it's healthy for any young person to feel independent or stand on their own 2 feet. And the groundwork for this, to both of your points, should start at school. It makes sense for students to find work during the holidays or part-time to get a feel for what it really means to work and get paid for that effort and weigh up the value of money from those endeavors. So for sure. Paul, more financially speaking, we have 529 plans for educational savings. They're helpful as soon as income is earned, maxing out Roth IRAs, traditional IRAs, and or 401ks. All of this should be encouraged, but I say not demanded. Most times one can't do everything. I mean, in the first few years of buying a house, for example, one may not be able to make the full contributions to retirement plans. And I think that's okay. We have about 3 minutes. What is the best investment for children, and what should you teach your children about assets?
I think if you create a plan ahead of time as parents, if you haven't had your kids yet and you're still thinking about it, I would tell you, or you've just had your children, I would tell you set up a plan. In our family, it's 12 years old. At 12 years old, the gift is you get an account, a brokerage account, a custodial brokerage account, and we start to put them in equities, and they start to learn about stocks, and they start to learn about value. And I love what Madison said. I like showing them. It is a big deal. You show them the chart here. Here's what your Apple stock did. They love it. They absolutely love it. And you can teach them the ups and the downs. I think getting them actively engaged in the process is the most important thing you can do, whatever the process means to you, because certain people have different means and different abilities and capabilities. But you can start with as simple as little things like making your bed, and they do something positive in the first thing when they get up. They can't have a failure of a day if they succeeded making their bed. And then they get a little bit of a token for that. That gets them a chit, not a demerit. That gets them a positive tick, right? And those positive ticks can add up, and they can see how when they do good things, they get the right kind of rewards for them. And when they do bad things, there's a demerit system. Hey, you chink away at your chits. You did that. You're down here. You lost a little bit because you did this or you did that. I think those kind of behaviors, creating those kind of behaviors, makes everything else so easy when you start to talk really about money. I just think it has to start happening earlier before they get sucked into some kind of an ideological framework where they don't appreciate, they don't believe, I mean, it's really messed up with the way some of these young people today, I see them when they come for interviews or they interview to be, work here part-time in the summer or be interns. Some of the ideological perspectives are scary. I think that's just rooted in their belief system, and that maps back to what they've been exposed to all the way into that, to that point. So that's what I think. I think it just starts early as soon as possible.
Well said. I couldn't agree more. And that's why parenting is extremely, extremely something to take very seriously, because we are influencing and affecting the next generation. So thank you for saying that. We are out of time. Thank you so much, dear friends. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Pleasure, Zen.
Guys, as parents, we want our children to be happy, confident, and secure. We hate to see them suffer, and we will do anything that we can to take the pain away. Indeed, we would rather go through something painful ourselves than watch our children experience it. But you need to lead by example and also be reasonable in order to avoid a permanent, irreversible situation. That was our Innovation and Tech segment, brought to you by Caldwell Soames. That was the awesome Madison Malloy, author, producer, and actually crypto enthusiast. We definitely have to have her come back on to chat that. Check her out at the Next Madison Podcast. Also head to her website, madisonmalloy.com, and she's on the gram at Next Madison Podcast. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OG Pay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OG Pay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcoming back to the segment for our extended talk is Paul Caldwell, Chairman and CEO of Caldwell Soames. Welcome back, my friend.
Hi, Zen. Glad to be here.
Okay, let's dive right into this. So, Paul, in your opinion, should parents handle conversations about living expenses directly, and when should that be taking place? So if you think of it, once a child is out of education and is on the hunt for a job, in my opinion, this is a flag for parents that it's time to take a step back. The considerations of how much financial support is needed comes down to how much is required to allow the graduate to focus their energies on finding gainful employment. What are your thoughts on this, and how should parents handle conversations about living expenses?
I think it comes down to teaching your kids that they have options. And I think it's important for them to understand that as a parent, I'm okay with those options, whatever option is chosen. You can't invoke a degree of optionality in a conversation with a kid and then not allow them to make the choice because you already have predisposed that they're going to do this, even though you've given them a lot of options. If you're going to create optionality, then you have to be willing to live with whatever option they may choose, or at least to the extent it gets you into another conversation. Think of all the rock stars that you may know whose parents almost fainted when they dropped out of decided they weren't going to go to med school or law school or engineering school or whatever school because they were going to start a rock band. And, you end up with, Metallica or something like that. Right. I mean, but that's one, right. Or how many parents live vicariously through their kids with sports when they're in high school, and they just know that their kids are going to grow up and get into the NBA or the MLB or the NFL. And then that's going to bring financial relief to the entire family and the posse that goes along with it or whatever. I think all that's a mistake. I think a simple conversation with your kids early, getting them baked in, just like eating their broccoli is good. I think that understanding money is good. The more that they're included in those conversations, the better, and the sooner, the better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And then if you look at it in retrospect, one would say to you, okay, as a parent, do you tell your kid there's the door upon graduation? I say no. Do you say to your kid, you can't come back here, I won't support you if they are 30 and they need that extra help? I would, of course, greet them with open arms, but with a plan. I wouldn't go into it, just, hey, here's a place for you to crash and I'm just going to be the sucker and I'm just going to pay for everything. It has to be well thought out. Boundaries have to be set. Expectations have to be set. You're now dealing with not a child, but another adult living in the house. And I tend to treat children as adults when they turn not 18, I say 21, but I have already started treating my eldest stepdaughter, Carly, who I love dearly, she's at University of Georgia, like an adult in my responses, in my reactions, in my expectations, but I will always be there for her to support her. But I do think, to your point, you have to treat everything in a very specific situation for each family. What works for you might not work for somebody else. But I think at the end of the day, 100%, Paul, to your point, it all comes down to financial literacy. You stress this throughout the interview, and I couldn't agree with you more. Once they understand what money is, what money does, what you can accomplish with money, and what you cannot accomplish with a lack of thereof, it's a game changer for them. So those charts, everything that you spoke of, I couldn't agree more. So you're clearly doing something right.
I think it comes down, Zen, a lot to questions. Asking your kids questions about money, about finances. And you know what? They'll come back and they'll ask you questions then later. My 13-year-old son came to me just yesterday, and he asked me, hey, Dad, this coming summer after school, when I get a job, should I get a job doing something, or should I sit, on the computer and do drop shipping? I said, drop shipping? What do you mean? Well, I could sell stuff online by drop shipping. I saw it on this thing, and I could be a drop shipper and make a lot of money instead of just going and making a little bit, here or there. I said, son, you're going to be 14 years old. There are a lot of ways to make money. Let's have this conversation when I'm able to actually think about what you're saying. Because he just jumped in on something else I was doing. But they will ask questions. They're inquisitive about money. If you make money part of the conversation, I think it's hard to do in a lot of families because money's not a positive thing. Too often, it's the thing you don't have enough of to begin with. So to talk about it is difficult. To talk about financial success and how they can be successful in that whole big picture. If you're sitting down here as a parent or a husband and wife struggling to make ends meet, kids aren't stupid. They hear the conversations that go on at night, the stresses, they feel it, they're part of it. So it's better to have a conversation with them about how they can mature and how they can grow and how they can grow out of that and through that and how you're going to help them do it. It's a teamwork effort and it becomes team family. When that happens, I think great things can happen no matter your economic situation.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much for this very insightful interview. I love getting perspectives from parents and entrepreneurs in general, because I think it sets up the framework for parents and non-parents alike for the generation that we are educating and that we are being role models to. But it really does just start at home, Paul. It really does. I mean, nobody could teach you financial literacy except a great foundational framework. And when you empower your children to not have to either live your circumstances or maybe in a positive situation, be an example and carry on the family legacy. I always say separate the children, right? If you are struggling financially, don't put it out there to your children and instill financial fear in them that they are going to also encounter the same hardships you did. Elevate them and lift them up if you're in a position of weakness. If you're in a position of power, like yourself, like myself, my 18-year-old stepson, who I've raised since he was 4, sells sneakers on the side. Now, this child has a very, very good life. He doesn't need to make extra money, but you know what? He always has money in his pocket because he doesn't like to ask for anything over his allowance, and that's okay. So he decided to have a side hustle, selling designer sneakers and trading them. And he has like a business going. And I'm very proud of the fact that he took this entrepreneurial mindset early on. He works hard at school. He's, on a league. He's part of like a really, really good foundation. And now we've instilled the value of entrepreneurship through financial literacy. So yeah, it all comes full circle.
I think so. 100%.
Thank you so much for joining, Paul. Till next time. Thank you. You're awesome.
My pleasure, Zen.
That was our Innovation and Tech segment brought to you by Caldwell Soames. That was the awesome Paul Caldwell, Chairman, CEO of Caldwell Soames, parent, dad, great example. Make sure you check them out. Head to some of their many websites, ogpay.com, navi.travel. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OGPay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OGPay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Coming up in the PoliticGal segment, brought to you by ogpay.com, we're featuring my dear friend, radio host, Rich Valdés, America's liberty-loving Latino amigo. Rich took over the late-night radio time slot previously held by Larry King and Jim Bohannon. Introducing Rich Valdés, America at Night, brings late-night radio alive each weeknight from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern with a perfect blend of news, interesting interviews, pop culture, and insight. Rich is well known in the Latino community as the voice of Hispanic conservatives. And how fitting is that voice? One narrative that emerged from the 2020 presidential election cycle was how Latinos around the country voted. And we all know how Donald Trump's campaign made inroads with Latino voters. Now, as 2024 looms near, media is once again raising the question of how Latinos will vote. The US Latino population has more than quadrupled in the past 40 years. We've seen a sharp uptick not only in the registration rate among Latinos eligible to vote, but also an increase in voter participation. There are many layered reasons Latinos have come to the Republican Party, from their own military experiences to anti-communism movements to Richard Nixon's outreach to Latinos via business opportunities like the National Economic Development Association. Tons of reasons. And here to give us insight on Hispanic conservatives, chat politics, and pop culture is the amazing Rich Valdés. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, Zen, what's going on?
Nice to have you back.
Likewise, it's always good to be with you.
Congratulations on all your success. No one deserves it more than you do.
No, you're very kind. Thank you.
Okay, let's talk about the amazing shoes and slot that you are filling. You were quoted saying, and let me remind you, because this is a very, very important quote. You said, "No one can ever fill Jim's shoes, but I consider it a blessing and a great honor to be part of the next generation of late night talk show hosts, following the tradition of Jim Bohannon and Larry King, connecting with the amazing audience on all these excellent affiliates." Take that in again, Rich. Close your eyes for me. This is 2023 for you. Congrats. And now talk to me about this amazing opportunity.
Well, yeah, it really is a tremendous blessing to like I said, follow in the footsteps of these guys. I often wonder, there's probably so many people that are more qualified than I, but I got the gig and I'm thrilled to be there. It's such an amazing time when you're able to connect with people. We're currently on 300 radio stations. We're live for 3 hours every night. And when you connect with an audience that large, it's about 6.5 million people. It really is. It's something like, it's like a high, so I enjoy live radio. I love being able to connect with people. And what's unique about the program, from what I've always done, commentary and not really had a lot of guests on my program. This is an interview show, so there's always guests on the program. And that's somewhat new for me, but it's also really interesting because you get to learn a lot from these guests. And it's kind of like a national late night town hall forum that the whole country is in on. And the final hour of the program, we open it up for whatever topic anybody wants. And it's called Open Phone America. It was started by Larry King back in the 1970s. And I talk to everybody about everything. And I got to tell you, that is such a unique experience, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the best of Rich Valdés America at Night, that's when you think of everything that you've done. I mean, that's the compilation of the week's best moments. And I know that airs Saturday from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern. So you have all these perfect slots positioned throughout our country, and lots of people are listening to you. Talk to me about how you ended up in the slot that you did, and what kind of headliners. I know you said you're going to have guests and interviews, but what kind of headliners and guests can we expect? Are you reactive news or proactive news?
Yeah, well, probably a little bit of both. So the way we approach the show is in the 10 o'clock hour. I start off with a monologue and follow it up with somebody that's a newsmaker from the day, whomever it may be. So whether it's somebody that's making headlines like President Trump, or somebody that is, right in the news. Like we had the dad whose daughter was raped in the bathroom of a public high school by a boy that was wearing a skirt in Loudoun County, Virginia. He spoke out at the school board meeting about this horrific thing that happened to him, and he was arrested. So we had him on the show to tell his side of the story. And, so sometimes it's pleasant news, sometimes it's really serious news. And then once we get into the 11 o'clock hour, we loosen it up a little bit and have, whether it's sportcasters like Stephen A. Smith or others, or entertainers. We've had Tony Orlando, absolutely amazing interview we had with Tony Orlando, and so many others. We try to keep it as diverse as we can on the entertainment side. So it's really a compilation of talking to people from different walks of life. And of course, in that final hour, we talk to everybody across America in the open phone segment.
I love the open phone segment. That's brilliant because that's where you really truly connect and people get excited.
Yeah,
And of course, your current podcast, which I'm a huge fan of, I listen to it all the time. This is
thank you.
America with Rich Valdés. That moves to the Cumulus Podcast Network and pushes out every Friday. And in that podcast, you really break down American politics, and truly you take your listeners on this amazing journey. You say it well through poverty, prosperity, and politics with a lot of humor, analysis, and I love the way you put it, a dash of sofrito. Okay, let's chat Latino voters and Hispanic conservatives. So Richard Nixon's outreach to Latinos via business opportunities like the National Economic Development Association, and Nixon being the first president to make the highly symbolic move of appointing the first Mexican American woman as U.S. Treasurer of the United States. It actually became a tradition in the 70s and 80s for the Republican Party to appoint Hispanic women to this role. So for Nixon, it was all about inclusion, and it's all about bringing Latinos not only into the Republican Party as voters, but in these leadership positions, so to speak. Rich, will we see the Latino community come out to vote in record numbers in 2024 as they did in 2020? And in your opinion, which party does the Hispanic community currently stand with?
Yeah, well, I would say the Democrats still have the monopoly on Democrats, but I think it's slowly dissipating, and more Hispanics, Latinos are realizing that voting for Democrats hasn't gotten them where they want to be. And quite frankly, I go to a small Cuban restaurant to get my café con leche every morning. They do a great job with the espresso. Super nice guy. This guy came from Havana to Key West on a jet ski on a 6-hour ride. And he's been in the country 20 years now. He's a citizen and he's a business owner. And we talk about politics whenever I go in there. And it's a really good time. And he was telling me today, he said, what's going on with the old guy? And I said, what old guy? And he said, your president, Joe Biden. I said, that's your president. And he tells me, well, listen, he says, Joe Biden, he called him El Viejito. He says, El Viejito is in bad shape. He said, what's going on at the border is an absolute travesty. Now, again, this is a guy, a legal immigrant, came here illegally, waited online, did the paperwork, did what he had to do, and is a citizen today. And he's saying, we can't allow this. He was telling me there's people in Cuba that are coming here. He said, these are the worst of the worst in Cuba. And I said, I've never really met a lazy or bad Cuban in my time of meeting immigrants in this country. And he said, that's because they usually keep them in jail. He said, but with yeah, that's what he said. But with migration being what it is, he said, the Cubans are happy to let go of the people to empty out some of their jails and let them make this trek to the southern border or through wherever they're coming. So it's really interesting to see how he did not support illegal immigration. He identifies as a Democrat, and he doesn't support Biden's border policy. So I think there's a lot more like him. I think there's a lot more like me, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that trend continue as we move forward in future elections.
Yeah, without a doubt. And listen, when you look at the strides that each party is making, I'm just going to go back to facts, because if you had to take a guess on which American political party would produce the first Mexican-born congresswoman, which one would it be? The Democrats or the party of Donald Trump? As though to prove that nothing in American politics today is predictable, it is indeed the latter. 2 weeks ago, Myra Flores flipped a Democrat-friendly Texas congressional seat in a special election and became both the first Republican Latina rep from the state of Texas and the first Mexican-born member of the House. She even thanked Trump for her victory. So there you have it. I mean, facts are facts.
Yeah, 100%. And look, and that was in the Rio Grande Valley. And I know when she ran for re-election, she wasn't successful, but I think she's going to run again, and I think she'll win again in the future, because it was a special election where she got in. And I think this is indicative of the battle, right, that's going on for the political football known as the Hispanic part of the electorate. And I think that's going to continue to happen with Hispanics becoming the largest minority demographic in the country. So the largest, the majority minority, I should say, they've gotten a lot of attention. And what's interesting to me is that you're seeing things like, not only did Myra Flores in that historic win that you're talking about win a seat for the Republicans, but she won a seat that was held by Democrats for something like 150 years. So I think, you're seeing the tide start to shift. And again, they put up a big fight. They got it back. But I think it's in play. You saw Ana Paulina Luna in South Florida. she also won a seat. So I think there's a lot more Hispanic women that are stepping up and a lot more Hispanic women that are winning, which I think we're going to continue to see.
I love it. And I love that you're at the forefront of propelling women, especially on the political front. You're a great supporter, and you're a great friend, and you actually see things through, not just from the male's perspective. I know you have two daughters that you love very much, and you're so uplifting with them as a dad. But I also know that your daughters look up to you politically, and they are of a different generation. Obviously, when you're looking at Gen Alpha or Gen Z, right? Those are very swayable demographics, right? They just kind of very sheepish. But when you're out there advocating for the right voice, for the right cause, with the proper statistics, because statistics don't lie, then it's clear to see why you are, the new voice of Hispanic conservatives, and really across 6 million people. I mean, that's a big number. Now, listen, you've come such a long way. Okay, we're going to leave politics on the side for just a minute here. We have 2 minutes left. What are your goals for 2023, Rich? And if you can give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Wow, really good question. Well, I think a piece of advice to my younger self would be to go for it. And I was a pretty good risk taker as a young man, but I feel like after I got married and became a dad, I became less of a risk taker. I think my advice would be to keep taking the risks. I think the old saying, no risk, no reward, is there's a lot of truth in that, and I would stick by that. And I think goals for 2023 is, obviously I'm in this brand new show. I'm on a multi-year contract, but that doesn't last forever. So I want to make sure we do an amazing job and, grow the show. We came in with a lot of affiliates. I'm hoping that we keep those and grow to, several more affiliates in major markets. And just, sky's the limit. And that's the goal.
Amazing stuff lined up for you. You are such a hard worker. I couldn't be more happy and more proud. And I'm so excited that you came on to share all the good news on our platform.
Yeah, well, a moment of Zen is an amazing place to be. This is an amazing platform, just the same. And you telling me I'm a hard worker. I don't know anybody who's working harder than you, Zen. So congratulations to you and your show, and a big salute to your audience as well.
Oh, thanks, Rich. You're the best. Well, that's a wrap, my dear friends. Trying to reduce Latino voters in one easily understood soundbite is totally unhelpful. The story of Latino conservatives is in many ways just like the story of American conservatives. Rich Valdés at Night is syndicated by Cumulus Media's Westwood One each weeknight from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern. Rich talks with special guests and loyal callers about a spectrum of topics ranging from current events and politics to entertainment and pop culture, and he's heard over 300 affiliates. Definitely check him out at Rich Valdés. That's richvaldes.com. Valdez with an S, not a Z. That was our PoliticGal segment brought to you by ogpay.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OGPay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OGPay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Well, that's a wrap, my dear friends. We are at the end of our date. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeart Radio, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. Or you could head to 710WOR.iHeart.com/a moment of Zen. Also, remember that we're now live on Traverse TV Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern and YouTube Sundays at 2 p.m. Of course, all episodes of A Moment of Zen are now available on Kathy Ireland's Your Home TV streaming platform 24/7. We do have our own channel. Head to mox.yourhometv.com. Thank you for listening to A Moment of Zen. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our sponsors that continue to make this show possible. And remember, happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it.